Today I'm joined by Mario Eafrati, one of my good friends from high school and now throughout college, and here we are. Mario, how we doing?
Doing good today.
All right. So, let's talk about yourself. Right out of high school, there were some issues going on between what you were looking for in life, what you strive to be. You had talked about going to play hockey, going to the Air Force, going to the reserves, stuff like that, or you were just going to go and continue with your flight journey. So, what was the whole process between all of those decisions, and how did you go about things?
So right out of high school, I wanted to play hockey, and I wanted to continue down that path, but that quickly became something that I quickly realized that was something that wasn't necessarily an option, and it's something that if you don't go away when you're like 15 for, you're kind of screwed, and you're not gonna get anywhere crazy. I had the chance to take a spot in like a tier 3 league in Minnesota, and it would have been like a crazy amount of money, and I would have had to live in Minnesota, and I was like, that's just not really an option. So, so that kind of died, and that was tough because like that was the dream,
Yeah,
all
hockey
through high
was
school.
your whole life.
Oh yeah, all through high school and everything, and like for, ever since like 5th grade, it was like hockey was everything. So that was really tough whenever that kind of died. But around sophomore year, I started looking into flying, and I realized that is what I wanted to do, and that was what I was passionate about. And so initially, it was just going to find a flight school and just go, and the Air Force was kind of an option, but I didn't realize there were things like the Guard and reserves. And I always thought that like the Guard and reserves were like kind of stupid, it's like, it's not active duty. Like, I don't want to do that. It's kind of dumb. But, I was talking to my uncle about it. He's a JAG officer in the West Virginia Guard. And he was just kind of telling me like, no, the Guard is actually like a really great thing. You get federal and state funding. So you get like all kind of schooling paid for, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks out of the year. Like, it's a great deal. So I tried to join the 171st Air Refueling Wing out of Pittsburgh. They fly KC-135s. It's, like I said, it's aero refueling, so, they go up 20, 30,000 feet, whatever. They stick a boom out the back, and they, you fly jets up, F-22s, 35s, C-17s, whatever you want that can refuel mid-air.
Yeah.
And so I thought that'd be pretty sweet to do. Build some flight time that way, join right out of high school. But the process just took forever. And the main holdup was my asthma whenever I was younger. Not even something I was really diagnosed with, but just like the Air Force just really doesn't like asthma at all.
Yeah.
And so hearing about that made them a little kind of weary about everything. And I think my recruiter kind of messed me up a little bit there too with he didn't really give me any waivers or anything like that. There's a lot of ways to get around asthma, especially if it's like the only issue. So I feel like there was a lot more that he could have done about that. But long story short, took my ASVAB, never really even got into MEPS, and it was like a year-long process just to do that. And so I kind of was just like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. And it was just going to be civilian all the way. And so in September of 21, late September, I think it's September 31st, I took my first flight, which was a few months after we graduated. We graduated in June. So a few months after we graduated, I took my first flight, and then it's been off and running from there.
Yep. So with you talking about like the asthma thing, it's really hard like to depict on how much that would have affected you because of the different altitudes in the air. But that hasn't affected you since, like whenever you're up in the Cessnas and everything like that.
No, and it's probably nothing that's going to really affect me in like a Cessna. Like, you don't really get any high, you don't get high enough for that to really affect you. But like all through high school, football and hockey wasn't really an issue at all. I never like had an asthma attack. Never used an inhaler. I mean, I used an inhaler because I was prescribed it. I was just prescribed an inhaler because I wheezed as a kid.
Yeah.
And like that's something that a lot of kids do, and I was never even really diagnosed with asthma, like I said. So just kind of unfortunate that was the case.
And then with your like flight journey since 2021, you started through Beaver originally, or was it through any other schooling?
No, it was straight through CCBC. So they actually have a high school academy program, which I did not get involved in, which I wish I did, because they take your junior and senior year in high school, and you just kind of like you split half a day and go up to Beaver for classes and stuff, and you can start flying too. And I wish I would have taken advantage of that, but like I said, I kind of thought about flight in my sophomore year, and I really got serious about it in like my junior and senior year, so I was a little late with that. But I knew CCBC was what I wanted to do. CCBC is, first of all, Beaver Airport is the third busiest airport in the state. Philly, Pitt, Beaver. A lot of student traffic. And then Beaver is one of only, so for ATC kids, this is great because Beaver is only one of only 3 airports in the country where ATC students can come train.
Yeah.
And it was the first one in the country where they could actually come train in real life, in real world experience.
In the control tower,
right,
having experience,
actually directing planes. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, that was the first one in the country where they could do that, and one of only 3 now. And it's just a great flight school, 2-year program. It's nothing really crazy. Just, flying. The biggest downfall, honestly, is the weather around here. During the winter, you kind of lose a few months of flying. So,
but yeah, it's still a great experience getting up in the planes, having hands-on, like with different weather, different situations where you'll have to contact the control tower, go through different procedures, get checkdowns, everything like that. Yeah,
and especially being right underneath Pittsburgh's like Class Bravo airspace, it's great because we get to talk to them so much, and we go up and do like instrument approaches and stuff, and you're talking to Pittsburgh approach, and you're talking to, and whenever we go on cross countries, we're talking to Pittsburgh and Youngstown and Cleveland, and if you go west, Indianapolis and stuff like that. So it's great to be able to use that real world, because if you go to like a 4-year program, which might seem better, you spend a lot more money because you're in a 4-year program, and a lot of places are backed up, or they just don't even let you start flying till in the back half. So, your junior year, you can start flying. And it's like, well, you're going through all this flight and ground school and stuff like that, and you're not even flying an actual plane. And so that's a huge advantage of Beaver, is that you fly from day one.
Yeah. And then you have, since 2021, you've gotten your private license, and then you're working towards your instrument right now.
That's right.
What were one of the main challenges going through your private, and then what have you been like working towards to better to get to your instrument?
Honestly, the main thing is money, and like that's the biggest like limiting factor, because in the summer you can fly a lot. You can fly like every single day in the summer, but if you don't have the money, it's not there. That's tough, and that was the biggest limiting factor for me. Like I'd fly every single day if I could. So getting through that and getting loans really is the only way to do it, unfortunately. But it's a sacrifice you have to make. And it's not like that bad considering all things considered. A lot of people pay $50,000 a semester. Yeah. It's probably going to be around $100,000 total. So like that's not, it's not too bad for flight school and everything like that. And that was a bit of a problem going into my instrument until I did get my loan situation figured out. And then, so now of course I've got the money, but I don't have the weather. It's winter. So then, but once the weather turns, I'll be able to fly every day, and that's really the biggest limiting factor. Private, I mean, the maneuvers are kind of tough. It's nothing. It's not really. It's tough because you're new, and it's the first time you're doing everything. It's not really tough because they're that hard. You have, plus or minus 100 feet. Like it's pretty wide standards on your maneuvers and stuff like that for your check ride. They say your private ride's your hardest because you just don't know what to expect, and it's just like, what do you expect in the oral? When you sit down with an examiner like this, what's he going to ask you? What are you going to know? What are you not going to know? So that's probably the biggest limiting factor with that, is just not knowing anything as well.
And then after your instrument, what are the next stages, and how long does it take you to get to flying commercial? Because that's what you want to do.
So instrument, I'm looking to be done by the end of the first quarter, so hopefully getting done around April. And then after that, is your commercial, which is not as cool as it sounds. It's just so you can get paid to fly. So like flight instructing, banner towing, anything like that. And after that, you'll be around like 250 hours, and you got to get to 1,500. So you got a long way to go, a lot of hours to build, which kind of sucks because it's a lot of time that you have to spend flying GA or just some smaller planes until you can get to the jets and get to your commercial flying. You have your commercial license, but your ATP is what you really need. Your airline transport, that's what you really are looking for to fly jets, which comes after you get your 1,500, after you get your commercial and everything.
And then you had talked recently about joining the reserves again and doing, is it flight through them or just doing like general training or?
Yeah, so there's two Air Force units at Pittsburgh. There's the 171st, which is the Guard, and then the 911th, which is the reserves. And the reserves fly C-17s. They have a great mission of the 911th Airlift Wing. And it's been a dream of mine to fly a C-17 ever since I was a kid. I went to the Guard first because they had the better benefits, but now that's not really an option anymore. You know, this is still a great option, and I'd love to try to get involved in it. We're still kind of in the middle of that process, so we'll see how that goes. But basically what I'll have to do is I'll have to enlist, and I'll probably join as like a load master initially and just load the planes up. And I mean, you're literally the load master. It's the job title. So, you know, you're loading, you know, troops, cargo, vehicles, you know, they can, you know, carry a Black Hawk helicopter, like anything like that. So you're just kind of loading whatever you can fit in there and taking it all across the world. So I like that mission. And then eventually, once I get my 4-year degree, I will apply for a pilot slot, hopefully get it, go to pilot school, come back as a C-17 pilot. And again, the reserve schedule is nice. It's not active duty, so they don't have you all the time. So you can still have that civilian flying life on the side, or reserves on the side, however you want to see it. And you can still do your civilian training and building time both ways, kind of.
Yeah. And then, like, I mean, all day, every day, you see these C-17s flying overhead. Like, honestly, I've thought about doing that too. Like,
yeah,
it's a cool thing just to think about. You're taking millions of people and equipment almost every day, shipping them either across the country, across the world.
Yeah,
like that would definitely be a cool experience.
It's great, yeah, and I just feel like it's a great way to serve others and to help other people. Even if you're just packing rucksacks and taking, you know, some Army troops over, like, you're the ones taking them over, and you're the one responsible for getting them to where they need to go.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're not like a general or anything like that, and you're not, you know, on the front lines, but you're a link in the chain.
Yeah, you're just as important.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool to think about it that way. So it's definitely something I want to do.
Yeah. What is a main thing that has helped you throughout this journey? Like, whether that be family, faith, just people in general?
Yeah, definitely my faith, first of all, because, like, you know, kind of like we talked about earlier, like, everything that I was in high school was, like, stripped away from me. It, like, within a year, within a few months, like, everything was stripped away from me that I was in high school. And the only thing left was God. And, like, the only thing left was my faith. And you realize at that moment where that's the only thing that's truly consistent. And so that's the only thing that you really need to be okay. So even if flight doesn't work out, even if all this that I am now is stripped away from me, I know I'll be okay because that is kind of my foundation. That's my rock. But then after that, 100% family. Like, it would just not be possible without everybody. Because again, I talked about the loans, but we did pay for my private out of pocket, which was like $12,000. And so, I mean, grandparents chipping in. Like, my grandparents were the ones that co-signed on the loan for me. My grandpa helping us out with, you know, kind of some monthly money for us. Like, it's just unbelievable help from them. And, like, I would not have been able to get it done without all hands on deck. Everybody, even going back to when I was playing hockey a little bit, I went out to Denver for like 6 weeks over the summer and just tried out for a bunch of teams out there and stuff. And having my aunt and uncle let me stay with them for 6 weeks over the summer, and they paid for some goalie lessons, which were like pretty expensive. And just having, just like I said, all hands on deck, like such a strong support system for my family wouldn't have been possible without all of them. So unbelievably grateful for that.
Yeah. And since graduation from high school, transitioning into college, and you've been almost 2 years now out of college, coming up, or out of high school.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of changes in your life. There's been like trouble, but now you've had a good foundation building up. And I've seen that happen pretty much the entire way, because I was with you since 2019, the beginning of my senior year. It's definitely really cool to see how you've handled things, and I can tell that faith and that foundation is definitely one of the main factors that has not held you together, but it's guided you and led you along the way, because I don't think there's ever been like a misstep.
Yeah, I mean, well, like, thank you, I appreciate it. And but like, yeah, I mean, no, it is totally my faith that holds me together. I mean, like I said, without that, I'm nothing. So I'd be totally lost. So it's definitely, it's pretty cool to have that.
Yeah. And going into like the flight aspect of things, do you ever see anything while you're up there that like triggers your mind, like saying, hey, that's all his creation, that's all that?
I mean, yeah, I think just everything. Like, I think, the fact, like, sunsets and stuff like that, and just like the night sky. Like the other night we were flying and the moon was so bright, we literally had a shadow on the ground, and that was just pretty cool. And it's just like, the sunsets and sunrises are some of the most beautiful things we see in our whole lives. Like, it's some of the most beautiful things. Like, everybody, let's go get up and watch the sunset. They're a sought after thing to see. And it happens every day. Sunsets and sunrises. And it's just kind of like, God just is like, yeah, man, like, this is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. I can do it every day. It's no big deal. Like, so I think that's pretty cool. And I don't know, this might seem kind of stupid, but one of the coolest things I think that I've seen was, I was flying, I was doing just a cross country, like, to Meadville, and I was coming back, and I flew over a flock of birds that were like migrating, and they were like in their little triangle. I don't know why, like, seeing that from above was pretty cool, and it was just so peaceful, like seeing them kind of coming this way as I was kind of going that way. And like, I don't know, it's so cool to think too that like they know where they're going and what's going on, and like, that God even kind of instilled that in them too, and that they can trust that where they're going is good. So I don't know, I just think that's one of the coolest things that I've seen. It might, like I said, might seem kind of stupid, but like, it's just odd, like, seeing that from above. It's just something, like, you see them all the time, you see them doing that from underneath all the time, but seeing it from above was a pretty cool perspective thing. Yeah,
because, like, I mean, we have our faith, we go to the Bible, we go to things like that for our guidance. Their guidance is just their own will. And, like, as it said, like, in the Our Father, your will be done. Like, that's just, we're going out, we're to be speaking the gospel, going to him, spreading his word. And even though they might be like mindless creatures, they're still doing the will of him, carrying on the everyday life and like the whole food chain aspect thing. It's just, in a way, it's still spreading it. And it's neat to think about.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's in Matthew where he says, like, the birds don't worry about what they're going to eat. It's like, how much greater are the things that I'll do for you? And it's just like, that really helps eliminate like some of the worry. It's like, where is this all going to go? Am I going to get into the reserves? Am I going to make it to the airlines and stuff like that? And you're just like wondering all this stuff. And it's just like, hey man, like, relax. Like, the birds don't worry about what they're going to eat, and we're greater than the birds. So like, we'll be okay too.